Hello. Good morning, everybody. I am using a new app that I have purchased specifically for lives because it has a lot of really cool features. The only uncool feature about this app is I can't touch up my appearance. So, yeah, here I am with my 42-year-old adult acne, if you don't mind. Hi, Beck. Hi. I'm going to show you how cool this thing is, people. I can do this. Can I do that? Hi, Catherine. I can do that. Look at that. Can everybody see Beck's comment on the screen? Oh, wow. How amazing is this? Let's see if I can type something and have it on the screen. Yeah, probably not. Oh, Danny, don't I know it, girl? Don't I know it? The hotness. The hotness. Oh, thanks, Declan. Hi, Biddy. Hi, Sonia. Why would you not have picked it though, Sonia? Is it because I look ancient? Suzanne, thank you. So I'm not sure whether that's sarcasm or not because I can't see captions. So can you see captions? Hey, Beck. Oh, Vanessa, I'm so glad. Hey, Karen. Hi, Marissa. Hi, Caitlin. Hi, Sarah. Oh, Suzanne. Okay, so this is the coolest app ever. It is truly, 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 truly so cool. Hey, Chris. I behave way more mature. You behave way more mature than me, or at least, yeah, let's emphasize the word seem. Yeah, because I don't. I really don't, Sonia. It's getting harder and harder. Hi, Kate. Because I'm, I guess, public, and because I'm a parent, I do have to mask a lot. The PDA is rife. The PDA force is strong in this one. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about what makes a therapist neuro-affirmative or neuro-affirming. It's a question I've been asked a lot. Just going to place my little book over here on one of the many cups I have in my office because I haven't taken them back inside because I don't do that often. ADHD, anyone? Hi, Helen. Okay, the first thing I want to say about when we're assessing whether a therapist or a therapy is neuro-affirming is that whole concept to me seems like we've gone off and, oh, Jessica, sorry, moment for the mullet. Thank you. Still a bit too much voomf up here, I think. We'll chop that back. Anita, I'm so glad you're here. This will remain on the page too. You just reminded me I forgot to cross-post it into the ITAS group. Thanks, Jessica. Thank you. Okay, there's the bin truck in the background with a little beeping. Sorry, I know what we're talking about. I will get back on track, but I just thought of something that I have to share, okay? This app has sound effects. So, is Kristy amazing? Yeah, Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Did everyone hear that? Applause? Yeah. There's a few actually. Triangle. Ooh, sorry about that. Nice. Ew. Yeah, okay. Not bad. That's all there is for now. Anyway, back to how to tell whether a therapist is neuroaffirming. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. Kristy, come on, girl. Okay, the whole concept of being neuro-affirmative, I feel like we've gone and created something that really shouldn't need to be created, that terminology, because neuro-affirmative itself basically means that we are being respectful of and inclusive of and radically accepting of a person's neurobiology. So under the umbrella of neurodiversity, which includes everybody, even people who are not neurodivergent, neuro meaning the brain, the nervous system, our neurobiology, diverse meaning differences, so everybody belongs inside of the neurodiversity model. So when we have therapies, for whatever reason, it needs to be neuro-affirming because it is focused on the person. So I don't know whether what I'm saying is making any sense, but I feel like it is just more evidence of ableism being rife in intervention, in just that word itself, early intervention, in therapist and therapy approaches. Yes, Deborah, holistic. Neens, I'm so glad. So taking that into account, let's talk about a few things to do with, I guess what we're asking is, how can we tell whether a therapist is being inclusive and respectful? How can we tell whether a therapy is inclusive or respectful? Hey Kylie, welcome. And this can be a really hard one, because I say this all the time. Our initiation process as parents, carers, families, even professionals, is one of doom and gloom. So basically, when my children were diagnosed, when the first of my 4 children was identified as autistic, it wasn't sold to us as something that was positive or even acceptable. Positive is, would be a long shot. Most parents are told that their children have a disorder. We acknowledge that autism, as an example, is a disability, 100% a disability, but I don't accept that I have a disorder. So when we think about the messages we're given as parents about what autism is, what it means, what it's going to mean for our families and our futures, because lots of people think that they can see into the future and they'll tell us our children will never do this or never do that. How can we know as parents moving forward and being committed to embracing and accepting autism in an unconditional, loving, nurturing way in our children, and we've come away with that conditioning to begin with? I totally understand why it's hard for us to know whether a therapist or a therapy is inclusive, respectful, and understanding and accepting. So this brings me to my first point, my very first point. Now you're going to hear a lady's voice popping up every now and then. I'll turn it off actually. That's our Slack program that we use in our team, and I've set it to a woman saying hummus every time I get a message. Hummus, hummus, Anyway, as parents, we have to do the work. We cannot get away with not doing the work if we want to be neuro-affirming ourselves. We just have to do the work, right? And what does that mean? That means that we seek out autistic communities where autistic adults exist. We read the literature written by autistic adults. We attend trainings and webinars. We immerse ourselves in groups that are on offer to parents and carers and professionals to learn from autistic adults, because the only true experts on neurodivergence are neurodivergent people ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm the expert on every neurodivergent person. I'm not. I'm only the expert on me. But it's important we get a range of experiences to understand. Hi, Suzanne. It's important that we learn from autistic people themselves, because that's where we can begin to have what we've been taught by non-neuro-affirming professionals dismantled. And that can be really challenging, really, really challenging. As a parent, I had to be in therapy to be able to undo everything I'd been told and taught about autism. And I'm an autistic person. So all the things that we read in the books, all the things that are still on offer to families and professionals, a lot of it is not neuro-affirming. A lot of it is pathologizing. It is dismissive. It is ableist. It is othering. Hey, Jude. And it's disorder narrative. And it's us and them. Hey, Sarah. Oh, all the books, right? All the books. There are some great books coming out now by autistic folks. And there are also books that are coming out by autistic folks that are still grounded in disorder narrative, because that's our conditioning sometimes. So as parents, we are forced to do the work, to do the dismantling, to do the challenging of our own thoughts and beliefs around what autism is. Because without that, our understanding of autism is going to find us in a position with therapists and therapies that we think are suitable for our children, but they may not be. So the first thing we do is we do the work. This doesn't just mean learning about autism. It means about addressing our trauma, addressing our fear, because the most important thing to know about raising our children in ways that are aligned with their needs, the way that we come to be responsive caregivers to our children, is by addressing that which creates discomfort in us. Because there are going to be mountains of disapproval and judgment and rejection and dismissal and ableism and gaslighting, sometimes from our own families and friends. And that's because of their conditioning. So always being prepared to be faced with people having an opinion. So as we learn more and more and more about what autism truly is and what it means for us and what it means for our children, then we come to understand what kind of therapists and what kind of therapies we will and won't accept. Now, in saying this is often based on privilege. Now, I'm a privileged person because of the colour of my skin, the country that I live in, my socioeconomic position, and I will have access to many benefits that other people will not have access to. So that may be because of racism, it could be genderism, sexism, it could be about sole parents being threatened to have their children removed when they're not attending school. There are so many complex layers to this. It is not simple, it is not black and white, and there is no right or wrong answer for everybody. We can't do blanket statements, we can't do generalization. We just can't. This is a person-to-person situation that we have to consider carefully. So I will talk about a few points here around therapies and therapists. First of all, the therapeutic relationship should be based on respect. Our relationship with a therapist, whether the therapy is for us or for our children, should be based on curiosity on their part. A great therapist will approach a situation, a person, with deep curiosity and with an open mind. They will ask a lot of questions about your preferences and what you want to gain from your time with your therapist. Traditionally, allied health professionals or therapists have been trained in a very specific way academically. This will involve using what we call person-first language, whereas a large majority of the autistic community, we prefer identity-first language, because being autistic for me, and this is only my experience, being autistic for me is a part of my identity and it is part of my culture. The way that I live my life is largely aligned with autistic culture. So I prefer to be referred to as an autistic person. This won't be the same for everybody, but it's okay to let your therapist know, I prefer to be referred to as an autistic person. And a great therapist will be 100% on board with that, despite the fact that they've been trained academically to use person-first language. Now, they've been trained to use that language because there was and still is an understanding that it's respectful of the person, that we're putting the person before the disability. But neuro-affirming practice does not separate the disability from the person. We acknowledge that the disability and the person are whole. We acknowledge that disability is a naturally occurring variation in human being. So it is a neutral term. It's not a superpower, it's not a disorder, it's just a neutral term. Oh, that's a person, oh, that's a brunette. Oh, that's a parent. Oh, that's an autistic person. That's all we want in the autistic community. I don't want to be up here. I don't want to be down there. I just want to be an autistic person, you know? So language is important. I always make it known to my support team, I guess, that I really don't like, I have a visceral reaction to the term ASD. ASD. Oh, they're a person with ASD. Or, oh, they're an ASD kid. No. ASD stands for Autism Spectrum Disorder. No, thank you. I wouldn't like to be referred to as a person with autism spectrum disorder or an autism spectrum disorder person. No, thanks. No, I just don't. Just autistic or autism is fine, or neurodivergent. Now again, these are my preferences. A great therapist acknowledges and respects that the parent knows their child. Okay, you know your child. You do. There was such a long time where I didn't think I did know my child after they were identified as autistic, because I was heavily immersed in the disorder narrative. I felt disempowered, I felt disconnected, I felt inadequate, I felt I couldn't possibly have the same knowledge and expertise as a professional. But that's not true. It's not true. We know our children. We absolutely know our children. And a great therapist will not just set goals based on a generic framework. And this happens all the time. Happens all the time. And it's just so counterproductive. It doesn't make sense. It's pathologizing, and it's dismissive, and it's invalidating, and it is not aligned with the individual needs of the person. I cannot tell you how often this happens. We hear, oh, a person is autistic, so we assume that they need... I'm sure people can throw out the therapies that I'm about to say. Generic framework. Occupational therapy, speech therapy, psychologist, and sometimes there might be some compliance-based therapy recommended on the side. If your child does not need those things, then they don't need those things. We're not looking to treat autism. Autism is not separate from me. It cannot be treated. I'm not going to suddenly become neuronormative one day. I'm always going to be autistic. So it doesn't matter how much speech therapy I have, how much OT I have, how much I see a psychologist. There's nothing about me that needs to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with me. So the goals that we're setting in therapy should always be built around improving the person's quality of life, which means that the person that the therapy is for must be an active participant. They must be an active participant in choosing their own goals. Now, this may not always be possible, because I guess an example of that is having a young child who is non-speaking and may not be able to communicate what they want in their life. So in that case, we're looking at supports. And an example for the non-speaking child is to be heavily focused on communication. Now, when we talk about this, it's so important to know the difference between supportive therapies and compliance-based therapies. We want to chuck this one away. We want to get rid of the compliance-based approaches for so many reasons. Again, we don't want to fix or change the child. We want to empower them. We want them to have an incredibly nurtured and rich sense of self. We want the child to understand that being autistic is neutral. It's not a superpower. It's not a disorder. It's just a different kind of person. It is a disability. And again, disability is also a neutral term. I'm a disabled person. Totally neutral. So we want to build up the person's sense of self, their sense of belonging, and we want to make life as accessible and as joyful as possible. We're basically meeting basic needs here. So for the non-speaking child, when we're looking at communication, we would look at using AAC, speech devices, using pictures, whatever works for the child. But we do not want to go in and have the goal be that they speak, that they are verbally communicating, because that might not be what they want. And it also might be traumatic for them to have neuronormative ways of communicating pushed onto them. Now, this is why we come back to the initial foundational approach, and that is that as parents we must do the work, immerse ourselves in autistic community and learn from autistic people, because that's where we learn and we process our discomfort around the fact that if we have a non-speaking child, they may never speak. And that's how we come to a place of acceptance with that. And we understand that speaking is not the most important form of communication. It is one form of communication. There are many forms of communication, and we offer that to the autistic person who is non-speaking in order to improve their quality of life, in order to have them be able to communicate not only their basic needs but their hopes and their dreams, in order to reduce their frustration, their loneliness, their isolation, in order to improve their mental health. We work on actively finding a form of communication that is right for them. I see you people over there talking about how you're better than everyone else. Yeah, we are a bit funnier, definitely hotter. Oh, it's disgusting how hot we are. I feel sorry for people not being as sexy as us. God, it must be so... Imagine how isolating it would be. Yeah. Anyway, I have a responsibility as a hot person to just show up. That's my take on it. I hope everyone knows I'm just being sarcastic. I'm not really full of myself. Definitely, especially not with these eyebrows anyway. How bad do I need a wax? Anyway, I digress. Back to the seriousness. So we're moving away from a generic framework. When we're talking about interpersonal therapeutic relationships, I can share an experience I had many moons ago where we had a speech therapist come into our home, and I think we had 1 or 2 sessions of a particular program. I won't name it. Talks about the group plan. I'm not up for the group plan, in case anyone hadn't noticed. And we decided, no, we're not doing that therapy. Thank you. And so I communicated respectfully via email. Thanks, but no thanks. And the therapist emailed back, and what followed was their chronological history of academic qualifications and why they begged to differ, that my child did not need that program. And here's all the points that I've pointed out in alphabetical order, nice and neat. Little bit of unidentified neurodivergence. Anyway, that was a big no for me. That was a red flag for me. Group plan. Oh, Suzanne, I was not born for the group plan. I was not made for the group plan. Oh, heck. Heck no. Heck. I'm all over the place today, honestly. It's Thursday. It's too close to Friday, which is very close to Saturday. Yes, so having our wants, our needs, our wishes respected by therapists is really important. Asking us, sound effect. Oh, I'm not sure which one to choose. Let's go through all of them, hey? Let's do it. I've got something to say. Oh, really? You're jumping in there. You're jumping the gun. Haven't even said it yet. Oh, stop. Go on. Stop. Go on. No, really stop. But go on. I was not made for the group plan. Okay. Back to serious now, please. Yeah, so if we say no, that no needs to be heard. Now, the therapies themselves, I highly recommend, and this is a very simple thing to do, I highly recommend, if you're not sure about a therapy, or you've just learnt about it, or just heard about it, Google the name of the therapy and autistic adults, and you'll find lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. Really what we want to be doing when we hear about a therapy is looking for the experience of the people that the therapy targets. Now, I know that's very different to what you're probably hearing elsewhere. Look at the science, it's evidence-based. Look at it. Look at it. Honestly, ask the people who the therapy is designed for. Because I can tell you now, most of those therapies are not designed by neurodivergent folks. So they may not be neuro-affirming. Someone's angry. Someone's angry with me. I never have angry people, but hello. Hello, angry person. Feel free to share your thoughts and feelings. Yeah, Jessica, I know. It's very, very challenging to navigate. Yeah, because we just keep coming up against the one size fits all, and if they don't fit, they have to. Doesn't leave a lot of space. Oh, Caitlin, was that you? Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I saw the angry face and I thought it was at me, and I just thought, oh, there's a therapist in the room. Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that, my misunderstanding. Yeah, so basically, that's what I did. Discovering the therapy that must not be named was very eye-opening. I was bombarded with evidence-based, then the autistic voices saying no. No, Caitlin, you don't need to be sorry. That was my mistake, not yours. Yes, Marissa, that is exactly what happens. Yeah, and sometimes there's also a research base that other people aren't readily accessing around the experiences of those people on the receiving end of the therapies that shall not be named. And we know that many of these therapies actually exacerbate social anxiety. They tip people over into trauma, PTSD. Hi Wendy, it's been ages. I hope you're well, and the littlies. Yeah, and I think we need to give ourselves permission to know that just because our children are autistic or we're autistic, we may not need any therapy. We just may not. Now, there are going to be people that need therapy or want it to improve the quality of life, their quality of life. Some people really love learning about how to adapt socially to neuronormativity. And you know what? That's their prerogative. If an autistic person wants to be socially immersed with other folks and they're struggling with that and they want therapy to help them with that, they get to do that. They really do. We can't talk about being advocates if we're telling people what they should and shouldn't do as a blanket statement. Can you say we may not need any therapy again and play the applause sound effect? Oh, sure, please let me. You know what? You people have to stop asking me to do this because I get lost. I get so lost. Okay. And I'm just going to perform the whole thing. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. And, you know, the thing is, we may not need therapy. Thank you. And that's hard for people to believe, that you can be neurodivergent and not need therapy. But when we understand that this is not a medical disorder, then it makes sense that we may not need therapy. We may be okay. There are generations and generations of people who really could have benefited from therapies and supports. So even replacing the word therapy with supports, tools, and there are also people that grew up without speech therapy, OT, and they feel neutral about that. I personally am glad I wasn't identified in the 80s, because I imagine my life, as hard as it has been, would have been a hell of a lot harder, because chances are I may well have been immersed in the therapy that shall not be named. How does one ask for strategies, supports, but not therapy? Well, you can ask for therapy. You absolutely can. And there will be times, Mel, where, for example, if we're accessing NDIS or we're accessing any kind of funding or having conversations with a support coordinator, or for any reason, we're going to have to use the language of medical disorder. And that hurts. It hurts, and I hope, and I do see that it's changing. But yeah, it's a reality, isn't it? Kristy, I struggle with explaining to my son that disability is neutral when the world does not see this as neutral. I want him to feel neutral. I think it's hard when our kids are kids. And sometimes we can build our children up when they're children, and then they get to their teens and their differences are highlighted in really negative ways, particularly if they're in the school system. So that can be really, really hard. And I actually think it's a very normal thing for teenagers to reject neurodivergent identity. I think it's a very normal thing. It's a very standard way of processing who we are. Teen years are very, very confusing, and we don't want to be different. It's terrifying being different. Yeah, that's really tricky, isn't it, Chris? Really, really tricky. But I think these things take time, and sometimes we have to let our children get there themselves. We can strew information, we can have conversations around them, but sometimes we have to leave them to learn these things themselves and work it out themselves. That's lovely, Tammy. Okay, everybody. I forgot about all the fancy settings, and I could have been doing things like this. Sharing stuff like Danny's really helpful tip look up the social model of disability, and sharing Jess's tip, you can support and advocate the idea of neutrality while also explaining to kids that unfortunately not everyone sees it this way and it sucks, but something we all navigate. Yeah, look, my 7-year-old is just constantly gobsmacked at the fact that people care so much about other people's gender or sexual orientation. Oh, that is such a funny term, sexual orientation. Other people's relationships or what kind of brain they have. Yeah, I am too. I just think, God, there's a whole world out there. There is a whole world out there, and we're sitting around focused on other people and their non-compliance, their non-conformity. How dare they? Okay, I'm going to go and see if I can purchase any more sound effects, and I will see you again another time. I'm going to have to edit this so much before I put it on YouTube. So much. Everyone, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Here's an applause for you. Yeah. Okay, everyone. I don't know how to get out of this. First time I've used it. Okay. Gonna get rid of that. Click on that. Bye-bye now.